The power of counting. Have you ever noticed how each day one is like an invisible medal? No one sees it, no one applauds it, but you feel it. It's that discreet, almost silent sensation that you've overcome yourself. But over time, that medal gets lost. The brain forgets, routine swallows it, the shine of the conquest fades. And it is in this forgetfulness that the enemy finds space. He whispers, "You haven't changed. You're still the same. You'll never win." How many men have believed this lie just because they didn't have concrete proof of their own victory before their eyes? The warriors of the past understood the power of recording. After each battle, they left marks, cuts in wood, symbols in stones, banners raised before the people. They didn't do this out of vanity, but out of necessity. They knew that the memory of victory strengthens the heart in the next fight. Today, your battle is not against iron armies, but against the invisible currents of lust. And just like them, you need to mark your victories, because if you don't record them, the mind steals from you the proof that you are advancing. And that's why this video is so important. Here we're going to talk about tools, but not just technical tools, apps or notebooks. We are going to talk about something much deeper: how to transform each day of resistance into a visible mark, into a concrete symbol of your discipline. You will understand why the brain needs to visualize progress, how each number becomes a landmark of identity, why marking the days strengthens your courage. We will explore modern tools, yes, the apps, the digital communities, the counters that shine on the screen, but also the simple and ancestral resources, the hand-scratched calendar, the mural full of marks, the notebook with notes that no one can erase. We will look at creative methods that make progress tangible, from a stone placed in a jar to a bracelet that you wear on your arm as a living reminder of your choice. Throughout this journey, you will also realize the dangers, because yes, even counting can become a trap when the number becomes a prison. And we're going to talk about that, about how to maintain balance, how to turn the streak into an ally, not a tyrant. We will also show how to integrate counting into larger goals, so that it is not just a record of days without pornography, but a symbol of discipline applied to your entire life, in studies, at work, in training, in relationships. In the end, you will have to answer yourself. What will be your tool? What will be your symbol? What will be the mark that will prove your struggle? And that's why I want you to walk with me to the end, because this is not just another video, it's a call. With each day recorded, you will be building an invisible monument that only you can erect. And this monument will become your armor against falls, your wall against temptation. Subscribe right now to this channel, because each episode of this series is a weapon delivered into your hands. And I don't want you to fight unarmed. And answer me. How many times have you fallen not because you were weak, but because you forgot to value the days you had won? How many times has the lack of registration made you believe that you were standing still, when in fact you were already marching firmly? Today, you will learn to transform each victory into a visible milestone. You will discover that counting days is not just mathematics. It is memory, it is discipline, it is proof that the war is not lost. Why tracking your journey is essential. The man who does not track his own journey is doomed to believe that he has not moved. It's like a traveler who crosses deserts and mountains, but never looks back to see how far he has come. Without this vision, he feels lost, tired, convinced that his steps are worthless. And when this thought settles in, the will to give up grows like a shadow. The human brain needs proof. It is driven not only by effort, but by concrete evidence that this effort is worth it. That's why tracking your journey is essential. Without registration, each day of victory is lost in oblivion, each battle won dissolves into routine. But when you mark, note, record, you give the brain what it needs most: meaning. Neuroscience explains this clearly. The brain releases dopamine not only when we receive pleasure, but when we see progress. It's the same mechanism that makes someone continue climbing a mountain because they can see the summit, even distant. Or that leads a soldier to continue marching because he sees the banner of his troop fluttering in the distance. Visible progress creates direction, creates motivation, creates fuel to not stop. In your fight against lust, this principle is even more important, because temptation tries to convince you that nothing has changed, that you are the same. that you are condemned to eternal fall. But when you look at a calendar full of marks or an app that shows your evolution, this lie loses strength. You have before your eyes the proof that you are advancing, even if in small steps, and that changes everything. Without tracking, relapse seems irrelevant. You think, it was just once. But if you had the record before your eyes, you would see that it wasn't just once. It was the breaking of a chain of victories. And this awareness hurts, but it is a pain that protects, because you start to think twice before throwing away everything you've built. Similarly, without registration, victories seem smaller. You may be on day 15 and think, this is nothing. But when you look at the 15 marks on the calendar or the 15 stones in the jar, you realize that each one is a battle won. And suddenly, what seemed little turns into a wall. The ancient warriors understood this principle. They marked their victories not only to remember, but to keep alive the flame of motivation. Each symbol was a reminder that the fight was worth it. Modern man needs to recover this wisdom, because without visible marks, the internal enemy has freedom to manipulate the mind. Therefore, tracking your journey is not a detail, it is a necessity. It is what transforms effort into narrative, pain into memory, victory into identity. When you record, you create evidence. And when you have evidence, no one, not even your mind, can steal from you the certainty that you are advancing. The psychological effect of counting. The human brain is driven by symbols. Since the early days of humanity, we have learned to give meaning to progress through visible marks, paintings in caves, carvings in stones, banners raised after battles. Man needed to see to believe. And even today, amidst bright screens and sophisticated technologies, this need continues. It is not enough to win in silence. The brain needs to see the victory to value it. That's why counting has such a powerful effect. When you look at the calendar and see the days crossed out, when you open an app and watch the numbers grow, when you write in a notebook, day 1, day 2, day 30, you are feeding your brain with concrete proof that you are capable. And this creates a virtuous circle. Yesterday's victory becomes fuel for today's victory, and the sum of them prepares tomorrow's victory. Neuroscience explains this phenomenon. The brain is driven by rewards. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter linked to motivation, is not released only when we receive pleasure, but when we anticipate achievements. It's as if each day recorded ignites a spark that says, "You are advancing, continue," and this spark keeps the habit alive, even when motivation seems fragile. When you mark day 1, it may seem little, but when you reach day 10, the number already begins to carry symbolic weight. And when you reach day 30, your identity is no longer the same. You stop being someone who just tries to stop and become someone who builds a journey. That's when the power of counting reveals itself. It doesn't just measure time, it shapes who you are. The ancient warriors understood this intuitively. The soldier who saw the banners raised after each battle did not only remember the victory, he remembered who he had become through it. Each flag was an identity reminder, and your day count works the same way. It's not just a sum of numbers, it's the construction of a narrative. Each day 1 is a flag raised on the invisible battlefield of your mind. But be careful. This power is not only external, it is internal. Counting is not for showing others how much you have advanced, but for showing yourself. It is in the silence of your own conscience that this number needs to echo. The man who looks at his progress feels within himself the certainty that he is not a slave of yesterday but master of today. That's why tracking the count is so transformative, because without it, the brain forgets. Without it, relapse seems less serious, as if nothing had been built. But when you have the visible mark of dozens of days, you think twice before destroying everything. Counting is not just memory, it is defense. It protects your journey against the lie that says that a slip doesn't make a difference. Deep down, the psychological effect of counting is this: transforming time into identity. It's not about accumulating days, it's about becoming the kind of man who honors each one of them. Digital tools, streak apps. We live in an era where technology can be both a trap and an ally. The same screens that drag millions into the slavery of pornography can be used to build the discipline that liberates. The difference is in how you choose to use them. And in this field, apps and digital tools have become powerful allies in the fight against lust. Think of habit apps, day counters, platforms created specifically to track streaks. They are not just software. They are extensions of your memory, constant reminders that you are at war. Each notification can be interpreted as a bugle call calling you back to discipline. Each growing graph can be seen as a banner being raised on the battlefield of your mind. These tools offer something the brain loves: visible metrics. You open the app and see the number increasing. You see graphs showing your evolution. You see badges and digital rewards that, even symbolic, have psychological power. It's as if you were collecting invisible medals which don't weigh in your pocket but weigh on your conscience. And it doesn't stop there. Many of these apps allow integration with online communities. This means that your journey ceases to be solitary. You can share your numbers, see the progress of others, receive words of encouragement, offer support to those who are starting. This collective aspect is more powerful than it seems, because the human being was made to fight in groups. The isolated warrior falls faster. The one who fights in unity resists. But be careful. Even digital tools can become traps if you use them superficially. It's no use just opening the app and feeling good for a few seconds. The tool is only valuable when it connects to your purpose. The number that grows needs to be translated into real discipline. The graph that rises needs to be reflected in concrete attitudes. Otherwise, technology becomes an illusion, and you fall into the same logic of pornography: immediate pleasure without real transformation. Used correctly, these tools can be like faithful mirrors. You look at yourself in them and see who you are becoming. They remind you that each day is a brick placed on the wall of freedom. They show that your battle is not invisible, but recorded, counted, valued. And this is where the choice comes in. Are you going to use technology as a chain or as a shield? The same screen that can drag you to the fall can also be used to raise your progress before your eyes. It all depends on how you decide to wield this weapon. Physical tools: notebook, calendar, mural. In a world obsessed with technology, it may seem strange to talk about paper and pen, but there is something powerful in the act of writing by hand, in the gesture of crossing out a calendar, in the simple movement of marking an X on each day conquered. This gesture, apparently banal, has the power to transform your struggle into something visible, concrete, palpable. The ancients knew this. They engraved symbols on stones, drew marks on walls, left records on wooden boards. They didn't need sophisticated graphs, because they understood that the visible symbol was enough to remind the heart of what had been conquered. And deep down, we are not so different from them. Our brain continues to need visual marks. When you look at a calendar full of X's, you're not just seeing crossed-out days, you are seeing battles won. A notebook can become your war diary. Each page written by hand is like a letter sent to the future, proving that you were there, that you fought, that you resisted. It's not just about writing day 1 or day 30. It's about putting into words how you felt, what you faced, what silent victories you achieved. And when you leaf through these pages, you feel that your journey is not abstract. It has weight. It smells like paper. It has ink marked by your own hand. The mural on the wall can also be a powerful weapon. Imagine waking up every day and when you open your eyes, seeing before you a picture full of marks of your progress. This is more than motivation. It is psychological strategy. Every time the desire tries to drag you, the mural will shout silently, "Look at everything you have already built. Is it worth throwing away?" This visual memory is a shield against relapses. And don't underestimate the power of simplicity. The act of crossing out a calendar seems small, but it generates a profound impact. Because, unlike digital, the physical involves the whole body. You pick up the pen, make the movement, see the mark on the paper. It is a sensory experience that leaves marks not only on the calendar, but also on your mind. These physical tools are like anchors in the real world. In an era of digital distractions, they pull you back to the concrete. They remind you that your struggle does not only happen in the mind or on the screens, but also in the physical space you inhabit. When progress becomes visible on the wall, on the table, or in the notebook, Discipline ceases to be abstract and becomes part of your home, part of your daily life, part of your identity. And the great truth is that in the end, it matters little whether you use the simplest calendar or the most elaborate mural. What matters is that with each mark made, you are saying to yourself, I continue to stand. I didn't give up. I am the man who chooses to resist. Creative tracking methods. Discipline doesn't always have to be rigid and heavy. Sometimes it can be creative, symbolic, even poetic. And when we talk about tracking your journey, opening space for creative tracking methods can transform your struggle into something more engaging and inspiring. Think, for example, of a transparent glass jar. With each day one, you put a small stone inside it. At first, the jar seems empty, insignificant, but over time it fills up. Each stone becomes a symbol of a battle won. And when you look at that full jar, you realize that you are not just accumulating stones, but accumulating concrete proof of your discipline. Another simple method is to use a bracelet or an elastic band on your wrist. Every time you look at it, you remember your journey. You remember the promise you made to yourself. This object becomes a symbol of commitment, a physical reminder that accompanies you everywhere. When the desire appears, just look at your wrist and remember, I chose to resist. I am building something bigger. You can also create personal symbols, short notes on small papers that accumulate in a box, quick drawings on a board, even photos that represent specific victories. The important thing is that these symbols make progress tangible, something that can be seen and touched. These creative methods have a special advantage. They involve the imaginary. They transform discipline into narrative. The pot of stones becomes a metaphor for a wall being erected. The bracelet becomes an invisible shield. The mural of notes becomes a recorded battlefield. Creativity gives color to discipline, and this keeps motivation burning. And make no mistake, as simple as they may seem, these symbols speak directly to the subconscious. The brain works with images, with signs, with symbols. The man who fills a pot with stones is not just storing minerals, he is training his mind to value each day. The man who writes notes and keeps them in a box is not just accumulating paper, he is building a library of victories. Creative tracking methods are silent reminders that you are advancing. They work as small traps against relapse because they make it impossible to forget your own journey. Every time you look at that pot, at that bracelet, at that mural, you are reminded that you have already walked too far to turn back. In the end, what matters is not the tool itself, but the meaning it carries. The pot of stones may seem insignificant to those who see it from the outside, but for you it is a wall. The bracelet may seem like a common accessory, but for you it is a shield. The mural may seem like a set of marks, but for you it is history. And it is this history that needs to be remembered every day, until your discipline becomes unshakable. The mistake of relying solely on memory. The mind is treacherous. How many times have you said to yourself, I'll remember? Remember the pain of relapse. Remember the feeling of victory. Remember how far you'd come. But when temptation arrives, memory becomes selective. It erases the most humiliating defeats, softens the pain of failure, hides the shame you swore you'd never feel again. And at the same time it diminishes your victories, makes it seem like nothing has changed, that all those days of struggle were useless. Relying solely on memory is like going into battle with a broken sword. When you need it most, it fails. The mind has a dangerous tendency. It protects the ego instead of protecting the truth. When you fall, it invents justifications. When you win, it forgets. It's as if there's a silent enemy inside you working against your discipline, always trying to erase the marks of your own evolution. And that's exactly why recording is indispensable. Because memory is fragile, but what is written, marked, or recorded remains. Without a record, relapse seems less serious. You tell yourself, it was just once. But if you had before your eyes a calendar full of crossed-out days, you would see that that fall destroyed weeks of struggle. And that vision hurts. But it is that pain that protects, because it reminds you of the real price of defeat. Memory tries to alleviate, but the record exposes the truth. Likewise, without a record, victories seem smaller. You may reach day 20 and think that nothing has changed. But when you look at the visible marks, 20 scratches on the calendar, 20 stones in the jar, 20 pages written, you realize that you have built something real. That vision fuels courage. It shouts louder than desire. Ancient warriors did not rely on memory. They left visible marks because they knew that the human heart is weak in the face of temptation. The soldier who returned from battle needed to look at the raised banners, the hanging shields, the symbols of victory. These marks reminded them that the fight had value, that the blood shed was not in vain. Modern man needs the same. He needs visible proof of his journey. Relying solely on memory is giving the enemy an unfair advantage, because in the heat of temptation, memory is not an ally, it is an enemy. It will whisper lies, it will soften the fall, it will steal the strength of victory. But when you have records before your eyes, there is no room for lies. Paper doesn't lie, the calendar doesn't lie, the stone in the jar doesn't lie. They are witnesses to what you have already achieved. Therefore, never rely solely on memory. Record, mark, write. Make your journey visible, because the invisible is easy to erase. Community and collective tracking. There is a strength that man alone cannot find. The lone warrior may be brave, but sooner or later he is overcome by fatigue. But the warrior who marches in unity finds strengths that he would never have alone. And this also applies to the discipline of your journey. When you share your count, when you show your progress to others, you transform your struggle into something collective. And what was just an individual battle becomes part of a larger war. Collective tools, groups, forums, digital communities are not just for displaying numbers but for creating bonds. When you write day 15 in a comment, you are not just recording your victory. You are inspiring another man who may have been on the ground and needed a spark to get up. At the same time, when you see someone write day 200, you are reminded that it is possible to go further, that there is a horizon beyond your vision. This collective tracking creates an invisible network of encouragement. It's as if each registered number is a shield raised next to yours. And together, these shields form an impenetrable wall. Because the shame that once weighed you down dissolves when you realize you are not alone. Others fight, others fall, others rise. The community shows that discipline is not an isolated burden, but a shared load. In addition, the presence of the community creates responsibility. When you know that others are following your journey, that they are waiting for your next report, you think twice before relapsing. Collective responsibility turns into personal discipline. It's as if your word is a contract. Every time you write day 30, you assume before others that you will reach day 31. But collective tracking is not just about numbers, it's about stories. Each comment, each report, each sharing is a reminder that the struggle is real and that no one needs to face it in silence. The community offers support on days of weakness and celebration on days of victory. It is a virtuous circle in which each man becomes at the same time apprentice and master. Ancient warriors fought side by side. They marched in rows, raised shields in formation, sang together so they wouldn't give up. Today, your community may not be on the physical battlefield, but it is within your reach, in groups, in comments, in forums. And when you connect to it, you realize that your struggle is part of something bigger. Therefore, do not despise the strength of the community. Share your progress even if it's just a number, because that number can turn into a torch that illuminates the path of someone who is still walking in the dark. And in the end, you will also be illuminated by the torches of others. When the count becomes a burden, everything that is a weapon can become a chain. What begins as a tool of liberation can, if misused, turn into a prison. The count, when understood in the wrong way, can stop being a shield and become a crushing weight. How many men have started the journey full of hope, only to realize that the numbers, instead of inspiring, have turned into monsters that accused them? It is necessary to understand, the count exists to serve you, not to enslave you. The number is a reminder, not a judge. But when the fragile mind clings too much to the digit, it runs the risk of reducing the entire journey to a cold calculation. The man begins to measure his dignity only by the number of days. Day 30, I am strong. Day 0, I am a failure. This mentality is not discipline, it is tyranny. And this tyranny destroys, because each fall turns into a catastrophe. The man looks at the zeroed number and thinks that all progress has been lost, when, in fact, the discipline built has not disappeared. The habit of getting up, the learning from the struggles, the courage to resist, remain within him. But the obsession with the number blinds him. He forgets that the journey is not linear, that each day one is a victory in itself, regardless of the count. This is where we need to learn to resignify. The count is a tool, not the identity. It does not define who you are, but shows the path you are treading. The number should not be interpreted as a sentence, but as a witness. Day 1 is not failure, it is a fresh start. Day 50 is not final glory, it is just another step. The danger is in forgetting that numbers are symbols, not the essence. Ancient warriors understood this. When they returned from a defeat, they did not tear down all the banners. They learned, got up, and continued fighting. The banner was a reminder of the battle, not an eternal accusation. Likewise, the count needs to be used with maturity, as a map, not as a chain, as a guide, not as an executioner. If you feel that the numbers are becoming a burden, breathe. Remember that what really matters is not the marker, but the discipline you are building within yourself. The number is just an external reflection of an internal war. And if it falls, the war continues. Victory is never annulled by the stumble. The secret is simple. Use the count as a weapon, but never give it the power to define your identity. Because your identity is not in the number of days, but in the decision you make every day to resist. Integration with larger goals. It is easy to reduce the count to something limited, days without pornography. But that vision is too small for the size of your battle. The true strength of the count is in integrating it into a larger purpose, transforming each marked day into a symbol of discipline that crosses all areas of your life. Think about it. If you can resist the most primitive desire, what else would you be able to resist? If you are able to overcome the temptation of lust, which is powerful and constant, what else could you not overcome? The streak you build is not just about the addiction, but about your identity as a disciplined man. When you look at the accumulated days, you shouldn't just think, I've been 30 days without pornography. You should think, I've been cultivating courage for 30 days. I've been strengthening my mind for 30 days. I've been training my character for 30 days. And that same energy can be taken to studies, to physical training, to career, to relationships. The streak becomes a symbol of universal discipline. The ancients called this virtue the ability to apply the same inner strength in different areas of life. The soldier who was firm on the battlefield was also firm in his word, firm in his family, firm in his duty. He did not compartmentalize his discipline, it became his identity. Likewise, the count you are building should not be restricted to one area, but overflow into all. And here is the beauty. When you integrate the streak into your larger goals, it stops being just a marker of abstinence and becomes a marker of life. Each registered day is not just a broken chain, but a brick placed in the construction of the man you are becoming. This is the turning point. Many limit themselves to using the count as a measure of abstinence, but few use it as a lever for complete transformation. If you are able to overcome such an intense desire, you are able to study with focus, train with discipline, work with excellence, love with integrity. The streak is not about what you are avoiding, but about what you are building. So, from today, each number you register must carry this weight. Don't just say, day 10 without pornography. Say, day 10 as a warrior, day 10 of discipline, day 10 of identity building. Because in the end, it's not about the days you left behind, but about the man who is emerging before your eyes. Interaction question. At this point, you have already realized the count is not just a number, it is identity. It is not just a marker, it is a living memory. But all this reflection needs to be brought back to you, to your life, to your commitment. It's no use just listening. It is necessary to take a stand. And that's why I want you to answer something here and now. Before, reflect with me. When was the last time you were proud of yourself? I'm not talking about external achievements, about praise from other people, but about that intimate feeling of looking in the mirror and saying, "I resisted, I kept my word." That feeling is priceless, and it is born from the record, from the concrete proof that you not only spoke, but did. Now imagine if you had a visible history of all your victories, a mural with dozens of crossed-out days, an app showing your evolution, a notebook full of notes. What would it be like to look at that on a day of weakness? What would it be like to face the weight of your own discipline when temptation came? It is exactly this impact that tracking generates, and this is where the interaction happens. I want you now to decide what your tool will be. Will it be the app on your cell phone? Will it be the calendar on the wall? Will it be the jar of stones, the notebook, the bracelet on your arm? You need to choose a symbol that represents your journey, something that becomes a daily witness to your discipline. So tell me in the comments, what tool are you going to use to track your journey? It's not just a question for engagement. It's a public pact. When you write your answer, you are assuming before yourself and everyone here that you will continue forward with discipline. It is your word transformed into commitment. And remember, your answer can be the spark that awakens another man. Maybe someone will read your comment and think, if he can do it, so can I. This is how the war is won, with each of us raising our weapon and showing that we are not alone. Philosophy of visible progress. There is a silent beauty in the marks of discipline. Think of a warrior who returns from the battlefield with scars on his arms. For some, that is ugly. It is a sign of pain. For him, it is a medal. Each scar is a reminder of a victory, of a moment when he was close to falling, but stood up. These marks do not disfigure, they dignify. Visible progress works the same way. The crossed-out calendar, the full notebook, the jar of stones, the numbers in the app, all of this are scars of your discipline. And when you look at them, you don't just see the time that has passed. You see the battles you won, the temptations you resisted, the falls you transformed into learning. This is the philosophy of visible progress, transforming the invisible into concrete proof. Because discipline, when it remains only in the mind, is easy to erase, but when it becomes a symbol, it remains. It's like engraving in stone what the wind would try to take away. The ancients understood this. The Romans erected columns to celebrate victories. The Spartans recorded in songs and legends the deeds of their warriors. Each mark was a living memory of who they were. Modern man often has forgotten this wisdom. He lives as if his discipline were invisible, waiting for memory to be enough. But memory fails. It is necessary to mark, record, make visible. And this visibility has transformative power. Because every time you look at your progress marks, your identity is reinforced. You are no longer the man who always falls. You are the man who builds. You are the warrior who accumulates scars of honor. You are the architect of a story that no one can erase. This philosophy changes everything. Because when you learn to see your progress, even small, you gain motivation to continue. Day 5 stops being just a number and becomes a reminder of 5 battles won. Day 50 becomes a monument. Day 100 becomes a personal legend. Visible progress is therefore more than just a record. It is identity, it is motivation, it is a weapon. It transforms discipline into memory and memory into courage. Each visible mark is a scar of victory that shouts to you, don't go back, you've come too far to give up now. Call to daily commitment. Discipline is not luck. Discipline is not talent. Discipline is decision. Every day when you wake up, the battlefield is already set up. On one side, the insistent desire asking you to surrender. On the other, the firm voice that says, remember who you are. And it is in that instant, in that space between temptation and choice, that daily commitment becomes your most powerful weapon. The tools we have seen so far, apps, calendars, notebooks, stones in a jar, bracelets, communities, are useful, but none of them have a life of their own. They don't win for you. They just remind, they just point, they just show. Who wins is you. It is your decision to get up, to continue, to not bend before what seems irresistible. And here is a truth that many ignore. The record only has value if there is daily commitment. Scribbling on the calendar is not enough if you are not willing to honor that scratch. Writing in the notebook is useless if the words do not reflect a concrete decision. Putting a stone in the jar means nothing if you yourself are not determined to carry that weight every day. Daily commitment is what transforms symbols into weapons. Without it, the mural is just decoration. With it, the mural becomes a reminder of war. Without it, the app is just a cold number. With it, the app becomes a witness to your courage. Everything depends on the silent choice you make when no one is watching. That's why ancient warriors were respected. They did not live on appearances, but on commitment. The Spartan did not get up only when there was an audience. He trained in silence in the harshness of everyday life. The samurai did not practice only when he was seen. His discipline was constant, invisible, incessant. This is the spirit you need to recover. The commitment that does not depend on applause, but on the conviction that your life is worth the discipline. So understand, there is no magic tool. There is no shortcut. What exists is the decision of today. And that decision needs to be renewed tomorrow. And then. Until discipline is no longer a choice, but an identity. This is the call to daily commitment, transforming each day into proof that you are not a slave, but a warrior. The warrior's mark. Each registered day is more than a number. It is a broken chain. It is a link that falls to the ground and echoes in the silence, reminding you that you refuse to live chained. It is a victory engraved in your history. It may seem small, but the accumulation of these marks creates a powerful narrative, a biography of discipline that no one can erase. Ancient warriors left scars, inscriptions, monuments. You leave your records on the calendar, in the app, in the notebook, in the community. And each of them is the mark of the modern warrior, because the world doesn't need more men who talk. It needs men who prove. It needs visible marks of discipline, of witnesses of courage. And here is the moment of your final decision. Are you going to let this video pass as just another reflection, or are you going to transform each word into action? The shield is already in your hands. The tool has already been delivered. All that's missing is your choice. Comment now the word Day 16. Declare publicly that you are standing, that you will not bend, that you will leave marks of your discipline. Subscribe to the channel because this war is long, and I want you to march with me until the end. And that was the video I prepared for you. But the fight doesn't end here. The next episode is already appearing on your screen now. Click and continue marching with me, because the war against lust can only be won step by step, day after day.